NATO has begun to formulate the correct responses to these drone incursions, but NATO it is a political organization, not a military organization. So everything is politically calibrated first, and NATO nations are trying to get the right balance between asking Russia not to do this and then responding to Russian provocations. And so there's a balance. And of course, Russia's playing this diplomatic game and threatening NATO nations as this goes on. So it's the beginning of more effective NATO response. Beginning. But this requires technology, it requires investment, it requires commitment from the nations to put resources behind it, and also the willingness to adopt rules of engagement which will go after Russian assets, like the shadow tankers that have been launching the drones over Copenhagen and Germany. There's no question that drones are a new dimension of warfare. These unmanned systems are relatively inexpensive, so they proliferate on the battlefield. And there are effective countermeasures. And what you see in Ukraine right now are nets that cover the arteries of transportation so that drones can't actually fly through the nets, although occasionally some get through. You also see counter-drone technology emerging with drones that can either crash into the enemy drones or somehow shoot something at them to disable them. But this is not yet a complete coherent defense. So it's a manufacturing race, it's a technology race. And meanwhile, all over the rest of the world, even in the United States, people are talking about what do we do about these drones? So I think the right technologies are some counter drones that can actually bring down drones with nets, not destroying them, not making them explode, but simply causing them to fall to the ground. These technologies are out there, but they have to be coupled with the detection technologies and then operations. Eventually, all this, I'm sure, is going to be put under artificial intelligence, but it isn't yet. It's always difficult for democracies to face the threat of aggression. Democracies have a hard time acknowledging these threats. It's difficult for political leaders to rally a nation unless the threat is so obvious and so immediate that it's almost too late to do anything about it. I discovered this when I was the NATO commander, and we tried to get NATO nations to focus on Serb ethnic cleansing in Kosovo and the NATO response. It's just a very difficult thing. Democratic nations, for the most part, they don't want to go to war. They don't want to change their finances. They don't want to alert citizens and frighten their own citizenry. And so they just can't quite face reality. So every day in Russia, there's some publication saying that Russia's at war with NATO. Russia's at war here. Russia's at war there, mobilizing the citizenry. Russia's not a democracy. That's what those kinds of governments can do to their people. But for NATO, comprised of democratic nations, it's a different story. So step by step, NATO is ramping up its production of weaponry, air defense, artillery, and so forth. Step by step, it's doing exercises. It's begun to pull resources together under NATO command in Operation Eastern Resolve to deal with the drone penetrations. But we're a long way in NATO from actually being at a, let's call it a war-ready state. I think the pacing is a little bit slow, but on the other hand, it's not reasonable to expect that nations like Germany and Britain would suddenly sound the alarm, mobilize reserves, scrap their budgets, stop their humanitarian and economic assistance programs at home and say everything's going to go into military production. This is what Russia's done. But NATO nations are not going to do this. And so they will carefully look at the threat from Russia, and then they will hopefully, not too late, be able to invest more in resources, bring forces to greater readiness, develop the technologies and deploy these technologies, and be ready if the Russian threat matures. But this is going to be a day-by-day, month-by-month challenge for Western political leaders.